Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jacob. In this video, I want to talk to you about the three layers, the three tiers with which you should be analyzing and learning from the content that you are consuming online. Right now, if you're like the vast majority of people in the internet marketing space, particularly if you're early on in your journey, chances are you're consuming more than you're producing. And the goal should be for you to flip that relationship when it comes to content. You ultimately want to be producing more than you're consuming if you want to go down the content marketing path, building a brand, building an audience, and monetizing it. But regardless of where you're at, chances are you're consuming content of some type, right? People you look up to, right? Maybe you're watching this video and a couple of other people that you pay attention to. Regardless of where you're at, you're typically consuming content from someone who has achieved something that you want to achieve. Okay, that's it, kind of in a nutshell. And I think the vast majority of people, when they consume content, be it free content or be it paid content, is they look at it with one lens on, right? There's actually three that you want to apply when consuming content. Now, this is something that I've done without even really realizing it over the last few years, and I think it's been a big advantage to me. But I was recently watching a Dan Kennedy video. Pardon me. I was recently watching a Dan Kennedy video where he told a story about a student who took this to another level, and it kind of prompted me to go, hey, that's something I do too, but I hadn't. I've spoken about it a little bit with some of my students, but this kind of takes it one step further. So I want to talk to you about those three levels of learning so you can maximize the value from the content that you are consuming, be it free or be it paid, okay? So before we dive into that, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, click the big red button and do that. Click the bell icon so you get notified whenever I drop a new video. Give the video a like if you get any value from this one, and leave any questions or comments below, and I'll do my best to get back to you throughout the week. So I'll tell you the little story that Dan Kennedy told, and then we're going to talk about these different layers. So he told a story of a student who, at one of his events, would sit there with three notebooks. Right now, some people don't take notes at all. Some people will have one notebook and they'll take notes. But this student would sit there with three notebooks, right? And what those three notebooks actually represent are these three lenses, these three levels with which I want you to be consuming the information that you're actually consuming. You want to be looking at it from multiple perspectives. This is going to mean you're going to get the most short-term and long-term ROI on the time or the money that you're investing in consuming, getting access to that information, okay? So the first level, and this is the first notebook that Dan's student would write in, was when you're consuming content, when you're watching a video like this, when you're watching anyone else's content, when you're reading content, a sales letter, a blog post, whatever it may be, the first level is the most simple, right? You want to consume it for what it is. You want to take the value that's on the surface, right? What's the subject matter? What are they telling me that I can take away from this content, right? Like, what is the actual, what is the core of it? What is the core of the value, proposition of that piece of content, right? So in this video, the value proposition is telling you three ways that you can, approach your learning and analyze your content, right? That's the first thing that you want to consume, right? So if you're watching a video where someone tells you how to build a certain thing or how to craft a Facebook ad or whatever, that's the first level with which you want to analyze it, okay? Surface level, that's what the vast majority of people do. That's the easy thing to do because all you have to do is listen and just take notes, okay? Step one is this, step two is this, step three is this. Anyone can do that, right? The difference between the people that do that and the people that take it further to these next two levels can have a massive, massive impact, right? So that second notebook was for how is this content being delivered, right? Now, when I say that, I don't mean it's on YouTube or it's on a blog or anything like that. I mean, what mechanisms, what strategies is the person that I'm consuming it from using in order to deliver it to me, in order to sell to me, in order to keep my attention, in order to position themselves, in order to qualify me as potentially a prospect. It's the strategy behind what you are consuming, right? And this can happen at any level, right? So I'm a member of a mastermind that I paid a lot to join over in Florida with a company. And one of the main reasons that I joined that, in addition to the value and in addition to the networking, was to see how they were run. One thing I've always wanted to do, and I did this at the end of last year, was run my own events. And I'm going to do them more and more as the world kind of normalizes a bit. But I wanted to see how they ran them. I wanted to see what a $10,000, $15,000 event looked like. I wanted to see the structure of the speakers and the downtime and the implementation. So that's that second level, is how is it done? What's the strategy behind it, right? So if you watch my YouTube videos, on the surface level, you could consume the value of the things that I talk about. But then if you wanted to pay attention at another level down, you could see when I give my call to actions. You could see that I give regular call to actions to join my program, which is the Super Affiliate Accelerator, and there's a link in the description if you want to check that out, right? You can listen to the things that I say in terms of positioning myself, positioning my brand, positioning that product, qualifying who my products are for and who they aren't for. All of those things, the strategy around how something is delivered, or the strategy around why content is being put out there. If you look at some of the topics of the videos that I put out there, they're very strategic and aimed at a certain type of person in my audience who might have a limiting or a false belief, right? They might have a certain objection that might be stopping them from working with me, right? And through the value, you break down those objections, right? Where most people will just look at the surface level value, the people that are analyzing the strategy behind the delivery of that content are going to pick up, okay, I see what Jacob's doing there. He's trying to break down this limiting belief or this false belief of the people in his audience in order to tip them over the edge. And when you start to do this consistently, it's really, really awesome to see it in effect, because you'll come up with a piece of content, a valuable piece of content, that'll be geared towards overcoming an objection, overcoming a limiting belief, overcoming a false belief, whatever it may be, and you'll put it out there. And then when the sales come off the back of it, it's really cool to see, because you've basically knocked over that domino for some people in your audience. Now, you're going to have to do that over and over again, but it's a completely different perspective to start analyzing people's content from, right? Why is the content being delivered in that way? How is it being delivered? What's the strategy behind their tonality, behind, what they include, the structure of the content, the calls to action, all that kind of stuff. You get what I'm saying? Like, the next level down beyond just what is the content telling me is how and why is it being delivered to me in this way. You will learn, I would argue, more from analyzing content from that perspective, from the vast majority of people in the internet marketing world who you look up to, right? I wouldn't do that from people who haven't got the results that you want, because you'll be led astray. But people that have the results that you want, analyzing how and why they do things in a certain way, will give you a completely different learning experience that, in my opinion, is more valuable in most cases than consuming what's on the surface, right? For the strategic nerds out there. And then the third one, and I had some clarity around this when I was hearing Dan Kennedy tell the story in the video that I was watching. I'm just going to grab my coffee. It's starting to go cold, so I wanted to finish it. This third bucket, which I've always done just in my head, but this person had this third notebook, which, it's awesome to see the level at which some people operate. So they had their first notebook was about the value they were consuming. The second notebook was about the strategy, the how, the why it was being delivered in that way. And the third one was, from these two notebooks that I've already consumed, and analyzed, how can I apply that to my business? And when I consume content, and when I attend events, or when I read a sales page, or I watch a video, I'm always thinking about that, right? So I'm taking in the value that's being presented to me. I'm trying to analyze how and why they're doing it. And then from both of those buckets, I'm trying to extract, okay, I look up to this person, they've got the results that I want. How can I implement either that valuable piece of information or the strategy that I've deduced from watching that piece of content or from buying that course or from going through that funnel or from attending that event? How can I implement that into my business, right? And that third level is going to give you such a massive ROI, because that's what's going to separate so many people. You know, the vast majority of people will stop at level 1. Some people will go to level 2 and they might start to pay attention to the strategy that's kind of going on, and they go, I know what's going on here. Like, they start to figure it out. But then the people that will actually get the ROI on it, because this brings it back to, you know, the cliche of taking action, is that's all well and good to consume the value and to try and understand why and how it's being delivered. But that third bucket is actually real practical application that's going to benefit you and your business, okay? So if you want to put yourself head and shoulders above the other people out there, start deploying that second level of analysis, how and why things are being done in a certain way. And if you want to take it and just obliterate everybody else, is be always proactively thinking, how can I integrate that value, the lessons from that value, and the strategy into my business? Because that's what's going to give you a plan and a roadmap to actually implement the shit that you are learning. It doesn't need to be said, I've said it a million times, but people just consume way too much, first and foremost, and even beyond that, they consume so much stuff that they never do anything with. I tell my students in the Super Affiliate Accelerator over and over again, I don't consume that much content. I really narrow how much I consume, right? Because 1, there's a lot of crap, but 2, too many voices